So I'm going to welcome everyone again to the 21st Live Learn Lunch in the series. Today we're going to be hearing from Ian Cooper, who is a member of the IEP and is going to be taking us through his experience of the employability sector and what he's learned about CPD along the way. It's looking like it's going to be a really exciting session. I'm very much looking forward to it myself. As ever, we do have some more sessions coming up. We have a couple next week and some throughout the summer and on into the autumn, and we're covering a variety of topics such as suicide prevention, virtual first aid, some coaching, yeah, anything you can imagine. We've got lots coming up. And I would say from a personal point of view, you all know who I am. Please do get in touch if there's anything you would like to see on the programme, and I will do my very, very best to get that organised for you. So thanks again. You've heard enough from me this morning. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat throughout the session and I will make sure that Ian gets them. But at this point, I'm going to pass over to Ian and I'll speak to you all at the end. Thank you. Over to you, Ian.
Thanks, Helen. Hi, everybody. Firstly, thank you so much for attending and giving up some, hopefully not all of your lunch hour for this on CPD. I'm just going to put my video on very quickly, just to say hello to everybody. Can people see me?
Yes, we can see you. You look lovely, Ian.
Hi, everybody. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the video off and then I'm just going to go through my Prezi. Once we've done that, we'll have a bit of a Q&A throughout. If you do have any questions throughout the slides, I will stop at various points. I do also have the chat on to my side, so I'm very fortunate enough to have double screen. So if everybody's happy, we'll get cracking now and I'll just come off the video. Okay, and firstly from me, I hope you find this valuable and I hope you can take some things away which you can utilise in both your personal and your professional practice.
Ian, I can't see your screen yet.
Yeah, I'll share. I'm just about to share it now.
Excellent, thank you.
I should now have the screen. So I've gone a little bit different. So what I've decided to do now is I've decided to go on Prezi rather than PowerPoint. And with CPD, both personally and professionally, should always be a journey for me. So I've utilised the global map. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you back from really before the start of my life through my experiences with managing high-performing remote teams, everything from lecturing to managing to lead IV, and how I've utilised my experiences to both hopefully add value to myself, but also to add value all around me. Okay, so the first slide we're going to look at. So what I want you to do is I want you to just have a little bit of a think, and hopefully by the end of today I will have provided more questions than answers. I don't have all the answers. I never purport to have all the answers. All I want to do is get you thinking and hopefully think about how you can really develop yourself and develop others around you. So you will leave thinking, could I do this? Could I do that? And that's what I want. I want to be able to inspire curiosity, to learn, to develop, and most importantly, to add value. So I just want you to think about, what does CPD actually mean to you? And secondly, is CPD even the right word to be using? Because essentially we all have our own preconceptions based on CPD, from our experiences, our attitude, places worked, from colleagues, and sometimes CPD gets a really good name, but sometimes it doesn't. But just for a minute, I just want you to note down, what does CPD mean to you? So 3 or 4 words on what CPD means for you, and actually if you think it's even the right word to be using. And apologies for the really, really cheesy picture on the right. So hopefully now everybody's had a chance to write down on those 2 topics. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you, and there's a really lovely picture of me when I was little, on my own journey. So that's me, rocking some lovely shoes and some lovely shorts and lovely curly blonde hair, which I used to hate when I was younger, but as you can imagine, all my elderly relatives used to love. So my first journey, my first part of the journey takes me to my dad, and he's quite a common theme of it. So my dad, when he was little, and just a disclaimer, if I do go quite deep within this, so if you do find it uncomfortable at any point, please feel free to drop out, to mute. because it is quite a deep journey, and I am very transparent, I am very clear, and I'm very honest. So I won't take offence if you do choose to leave, if it does touch your nerves. So before I start, I just wanted to go through that. So the first part will be Dad. So Dad grew up in a village. Unfortunately, when he was 4, his dad at the time decided to leave him and my sister, who was 2, my auntie, who was 2 at the time, and my grandma for another woman in the village, and never spoke to my dad again. And the endearing memory that I've had from my auntie is that Dad ran down the street crying. And you can imagine in kind of the mid 1940s, 1950s, so an image to be burned on you. So he never saw or never spoke to his dad. I never met my granddad. So that was Dad's a really tragic, I would say, memory for Dad to have imprinted in his life. And of course, it's a generational thing in kind of middle class England at that time, that people didn't talk and they struggled. So Dad kept that all to himself. That was tricky for him because he let things build up, and this would have an impact throughout his life. So my early life, I was brought up in a village, very much middle class English village. Lived quite close to primary school, lived with mum and dad at the time. Mum was a school teacher, dad was a pharmaceutical manager for a pharmaceutical firm, which essentially meant he went working around hospitals, selling pharmaceuticals. Village life was good. I loved primary school. As you can see, I was a really happy, smiley child, loved primary school, but everything changed when I got to secondary school. When I was 11, I went to the butcher's. I can remember it so vividly with mum. And as kind of a 9, 10-year-old, you're really curious. So I was ferreting around the car, looking in the glove compartment. And within that glove compartment, I found some divorce papers. Now, 9, 10, in the middle class village where divorce never happened in kind of the early to mid 90s, that was a bit of a shock for me. So that was something, that was kind of the first lead domino. So I found out about that divorce going through. I then went to comprehensive school. So comprehensive school, as soon as I got to comprehensive school, it was very different, going from the 300 strong primary school to a 1,200 strong comprehensive school. And at comprehensive school, I started to get bullied. So within that bullying, I'd be called names. No physical violence, it was more psychological. But the thing is, with psychological violence, it kind of, and abuse, it runs deeper. I can remember I walked into school one day and I used to walk past the tennis courts. The tennis courts were about 3 or 4 tennis courts long, and it was dewy, so you could write things on the dew. And as I walked past, I was probably year 8 at this point, as I walked past, people would write horrible things about me all around those tennis courts. Our form room, as it was called then, was close to it. And to be kind of 11, 12, walking past that, it was a really bad experience. I never really talked about it. I never really talked about being bullied. And every time someone would ask if I was okay, I cried because I just didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to talk, and I bottled things up. And I completely lost my confidence. I wouldn't look people in the eye. I'd mumble. I'd use my body language to put up barriers. So confidence-wise, it massively knocked my confidence. And I would say it took a good 15 years to kind of fully regain the confidence I had when I was a little lad loving life on that bike. Let me take you to year 8 at school. So I'd just done cross-country, and my dad was an alcoholic. So my dad was an alcoholic from what I can remember. So I can never remember, per se, having a normal dad. He did love a drink. He loved his cigarettes. And in October 1994, he crashed. So he was drink driving on the way back. On the way to pick up an Indian. It's imprinted in my brain. He crashed the car. So he was going down the hill, crashed the car. Didn't have a seatbelt on, so he got thrown out of the car. And he was luckily, he was found by somebody in a ditch. So the car went one way, he went the other. He was rushed to John Radcliffe Hospital, where he actually died on the operating table. But because of his contacts within the pharmaceutical industry, they flew a specialist to save his life. That was 1994. Dad never worked again. Now I can remember the police coming around my house. So Dad was in hospital for a long time. During that period, my parents were getting a messy divorce, and by a messy divorce, I mean, it was horrible. Dad wouldn't give Mum anything. He wanted to take everything for himself. And that all stems back from the fact he didn't talk about that really traumatic incident he had when he was young. So at that time, year 8, year 9, being bullied, Dad was in intensive care. I just want you to put pictures in your head. He was 5'11". When he had his crash, he was an ex-rugby player, so he was 15, 16 stone. Had his crash completely destroyed him physically and mentally, and he didn't talk throughout this time. So I'm just going to bring you on to the next part of my journey. So the next part of the journey, there's a lovely picture in my first car, Vauxhall Nova, for anybody that remembers those. Essentially, I then went through secondary school being bullied for the most part, until about year 11, year 10, that's actually ironically my best friend next to me. I discovered drama and performing in sixth form, when I really started to kind of get my confidence back and the bullying stopped. All that time, Dad was kind of trying to recover from his really severe injuries. So by that time, we went from living in a really nice family house to Mum and I moved when I was in year 8. Dad then went to live on his own, but because he didn't talk and his mindset was so fixed, and he was the generation that didn't talk, he spent the entire time trying to escape, because psychologically he just didn't know how to deal with it. So all these feelings essentially, that they built up within him. So I want you just to think about how you can relate this to colleagues that you manage, students that you work with, partners you work with, in terms of real clarity, comfortability, transparency, and honesty. But he was getting worse and worse. So all he used to do was drink. Whiskey was his choice. So he was an alcoholic during this time. So he used to smoke 40 cigarettes a day. He used to just sit at home, and just try and escape from life, which obviously cascaded into a vicious rather than a virtuous cycle. He would drink because he was sad, and he was sad because he would drink. He used to carry on smoking. He never worked again. From that, I used to go around, and the walls and the ceiling, you can imagine if you smoke a lot, you get all the residue that was on the ceiling. The house stunk. It was just full of whiskey bottles, and Dad just used to sit there in his pajamas. And unfortunately, because of his crash, the right-hand side of his stomach, he used to have, I can only describe it as a catheter. So he used to have a catheter coming out, which essentially drained the wound. And because he used to drink, because he used to smoke, what happened is that wound just wouldn't heal, and he'd just sit in his chair. He wouldn't exercise, so he wouldn't get any physical exercise. And on that, he wouldn't get any psychological exercise, because he wouldn't talk about things. He wouldn't think there's anything wrong. So he really struggled with his mental health. He used to go into alter egos to really, that was his coping mechanism. That's how he worked for it. So essentially, whilst I was at university, which was really, really good for me, I was caring for a parent. He used to ring me up and in different voices. I used to, at 18, 19, 20, take him to Sainsbury's to get his shopping. And you can imagine your parent, who you're meant to look up to, who's meant to be your role model. He would walk around Sainsbury's in slippers, in pajamas, both top and bottom, and kind of probably what's best described as a flasher man. All the time you could see where his catheter bag was leaking, because he wouldn't fit. He wouldn't heal himself. He wouldn't talk. He wouldn't get help. And he was very much a believer in he would have to deal with this himself. And anything about talking was weakness. So that essentially led to me getting a fixed mindset. So living with Mum and having to be really independent, when no one in the village, no one had gone through divorce. Obviously, families have their problems. Absolutely, they do. But no one really had gone through divorce. So it was strange water for me. So I had to be independent. So it grew me into a fixed mindset that if I didn't do something the first time and it wasn't perfect, I was a failure. And that really, I suppose I was an underachiever educational wise. So B's and C's for GCSE, happy with that. But I didn't work as hard as I could do. I was really stuck in a fixed mindset, and I was really stubborn, surprisingly. I came up with 2 Ds for A levels, 2 Ds and 2 U's. And it led to a third class degree. All of those which I was really ashamed of up until about, I'd say, 8 to 10 years ago. This obviously, that cascaded down to self-talk. So in terms of that, I would talk to myself negatively, wouldn't think I was good enough, wouldn't think I could do things, thought how you were genetically and physically was how it was set, and that's just the way it was. So I didn't progress. I didn't move as well as I should do. That wasn't to say all my life was doom and gloom. I did enjoy myself. I had a great time at uni. I met some great friends. I did love life to a point, but I had this internal struggle, I suppose, going around whilst caring for Dad. But within that, there was further family struggle. So Dad died in 2002. He had his accident in 1994. He never worked again. So I just want you to picture that person who was 5'11" when he died. Sorry, when he had his accident, and he was 15 stone. When he died, he was 5'6" and 7 stone, and he actually died of cirrhosis of the liver, so liver failure. All to do, and I firmly believe this, and I also firmly believe Dad's passing was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, because it allows me to help and impact many, many people. But the one reason he died, and the one reason he never worked again, and the one reason he lost so much weight and lost his friends and went into kind of his shell, he was an alcoholic with mental health issues, was because he didn't talk. And this is something that doesn't just go for your students, it goes for your management, your clients you work with. It's how you do one thing for me is how you do everything. And it's thinking about how that one tiny thing can really change your life. From that, I had further family struggles. So in 2005, my cousin died. So my cousin, very intellectually gifted, but again, cursed with that fixed mindset. He was also an alcoholic. He died when he was 44, living back with his parents. I think he choked in his own vomit. He was an alcoholic. From then on, from when Dad died, Grandma, his mum, died 2 weeks afterwards. So I remember going to Dad's funeral. I remember it very vividly. If anyone's seen Harry Potter, probably the best way to describe it is when the Dementors give you the Dementor's kiss. You look as though everything has been sucked from you. So Grandma died 2 weeks after what I can only say was a broken heart. Pretty big for me to take at 22, 23. But again, I truly believe that these things, so Dad dying, Grandma dying, my cousin dying, was some of the best things that ever happened to me. And I truly believe this because it allows me to do what I'm doing now. Without those things happening to me, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now, and I wouldn't be able to hopefully have the impact I'd like to have. And it probably took me until about 30 to have a little bit of an epiphany. I've just been talking for a good 20 minutes, so has anybody got any questions they want to pop on the chat screen? If not, no problem. Ellen, I can't see any questions.
No, not at this stage. I think they're in. I don't want to say enjoying because it's not that sort of story, is it? But I think everybody's listening to the story. And
okay, perfect. Okay, no worries. So what I want to go on to now is the one change.
Right, sorry, just before you carry on, we do have a couple of comments that have come in that people have had similar experiences, and thank you for sharing. And Emma wanted to know, where did your epiphany come from, and was there a trigger?
Yes, there was, and it's perfect because I'm just about to explain that now. So we're working logically, which is good. Happy with me to continue?
Perfect, yes.
Right, Emma, hopefully this answers your question. So really, in terms of the epiphany, it leads us nicely onto this next slide. My epiphany came one Sunday, sat in the flat I live in now, looking through YouTube. And my epiphany was I was sat on YouTube, and something came up for a guy called Ty Lopez. You may have heard of him, you may not. I like my cars, and all I saw in his garage were Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and all these books. And he talked about how picking up a book has ultimately changed his life. So I thought, you know what? Let's pick up a book. Let's see what we can do. That was my one change, and that one choice, probably about 8 years ago, I can categorically say has absolutely changed my life. And this is something I really want to get from today, and hopefully you will get from today. It's the smallest things that mean the most, and it's the smallest things that can really change your life. And hopefully my experience will give you a real good idea of how doing the simple things consistently really help you. So all that change was nothing massive at all. It was 2 books, 15 minutes a day. That was it. Nothing fancy, nothing sparkly. I'm sorry if I've disappointed you, but all I decided to do was read 2 books for 15 minutes a day. And that has absolutely changed my life in so many ways. And that for me has been a lead domino. So I just want you to think on the bottom of that. I've got a little question there. So just something to note down. What is that lead domino? So the lead domino for me was reading. What could a lead domino be for you? So it might be, so Helen and I were talking about the fact that she likes running. The lead domino could be going for a run 3 times a week for 5 minutes. That lead domino is getting rid of that inertia, because the inertia of getting out is always the issue. In the science of habits, it really is. It's getting through that inertia. And when I say this to people, like, if you want to get fitter, just go and do 5 minutes, three times a week. I do get funny looks, and I get feedback that people, is that it? Is it really that easy? Well, absolutely, it is that easy, because it's not about the time. It's about creating those neural pathways, really looking at that neuroplasticity, so you can embed in those pathways the strong habits. And that works for both you as people, that works for you as managers, teachers, lecturers, client managers, whatever you may do. It's about doing those simple habits. And I got that ingrained in me. So now I do an hour. So I still have my 2 books, but I do half an hour each. But because I have such a short attention span, I do half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening. So that what that does straight away, it wipes the excuses of time, because everybody's got time. If not, you're either unable or unwilling. So just think about, what could a lead domino be for you to help develop your performance? What could a lead domino be for your students to help develop your performance? And people think a quantum leap, for example, is something huge, something massive. It's not. It's the continual build-up of energy. So it's lots of little things done consistently. What people see now is they see, especially within societal norms, so they see in social media, they see one-hit wonders, they see overnight successes, they see people that seem to get fame easily. They see lots of people that they perceive are doing things quickly and easily and get it like that.
I
Unfortunately, yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
I agree. And I think there's been a lot on, hasn't there, about this toxic productivity, where we were all told at the start of lockdown, if we didn't come out of it the other side speaking a new language or something else, we'd failed. And it put pressure on people who were already under pressure to homeschool and do other things. So it doesn't need to be a massive life change. It needs to be a step, doesn't it? We've had some comments. Carol said that a bad back resulted in her trying yoga, which has also led to mindfulness. And that's become
Brilliant.
life changing. And another comment from Anila, who said reading and speaking to someone to think about possible solutions of problems has been a lead domino for her. So
Brilliant.
it is, isn't it?
Lovely. Thanks for the comments, guys. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, from me, it's really nice to see that it's resonating with you. And that's what I'm here to do, right? If I can benefit and I can impact one person, think, actually, you know what, Ian, that's a really good takeaway, I might try it. Again, I'll go back to what I said at the start. You'll probably get more questions than answers from this, but if that fires up your curiosity to think, actually, you know what, it's all about the little things. Because those, as you were saying, Helen, those societal norms do become toxic. It's that instant gratification. It's that failure is a weakness. People buy things with money that they don't have to impress people they don't like. But actually, if you go back to things, the simplest things done consistently over time equal extraordinary results. So the ordinary done consistently equals extraordinary. And that's what we don't see. That's what sometimes that gets put up. And I could go into this a lot of people. I'm not going to, but for me, it's about doing the simple things well consistently will put you ahead, for me, and I truly believe this, ahead of 80% of people out there. So just moving on to the second bit. So the benefits of reading. So I've always been very fit, be it with hockey, running. I've done a few marathons, done some triathlons, attempting to play five-a-side, golf, skiing, anything like that. I've always been really fit because I could see that your body is malleable. The more exercise you do, the fitter you get. But I saw my brain as a rock. I very much saw it as thick. I couldn't get better. If I couldn't do something, I was stupid. I was a failure. And all the negative stigma that come with that. But it's changed my mindset to realise that your brain is malleable. You can do whatever you want. I was ashamed by my third class degree. I was ashamed by my 2Ds for A-level for a long, long time. And then I was sat talking to a cohort of students that I used to manage. And one of them comes back to me, and it was really interesting. He's like, but Ian, that's a degree. And it all comes to your perspective. And now those Ds and 2Us and that third class degree, you know what, I'm really proud of those. because it might not be your 2-1, your 2-2, or your first that everybody seems to have. But what it is, it's a tool that's allowed me to move forward. And for a long time, I judged myself on a piece of paper that I did when I was 20 years old, and that was fundamentally wrong. So it's allowed me to really improve my fitness. Oh, sorry, my mindset. So really going for that growth side of things. It's allowed me to improve my fitness. It's allowed me to, at 37, carry on playing a very good standard of hockey. It's allowed me to get a very nice 5K time. It's allowed me to realise that pretty much anything is possible in terms of fitness, and age is very much a number. It's not how old you are. For me, it's your attitude to age. Finances change quite significantly. I inherited a lot from Dad when he passed. I used to spend a lot of that. So I used to say, if I wanted a new car, I'd get it. If I wanted a new bathroom, I'd get it. If I wanted a loan, I'd get it. And unfortunately, that allowed me to lose 100,000 of what I've inherited. But reading has allowed me now to really completely change my finances and completely flip those around. After taking voluntary redundancy at the start of March, I'm now, the 23rd of July, I get to be financially comfortable. Don't get me wrong, I want to get back into the industry and make an impact, but it's allowed me to be financially secure and not to worry about my finances. It's allowed me to improve my relationships, both with family, both with women, both at work. And it's allowed me to really think, actually, you know what, it's all about how I add value and how I utilise my experiences. And it's also allowed me to improve. It's allowed me to go from a tutor and a lecturer thought that that's all I do, to someone that manages people with PhDs, to managing people with a master's degree, and to heading up a division. But also it's allowed me, and I think most importantly, the theme of this topic is, it's allowed me to focus on my own and other CPD. So what I want you to do now, I just want you to think about, so my topic today was my own experiences in CPD. I want you to think about, what's that definition of the P? So when you're working with your staff, when you're working with students, when we're discussing CPD in any form, what should that P be defined as? Or do we even need the P? Should it be there? And by putting in a P, are we hamstringing ourselves? Are we pigeonholing ourselves? Are we saying development starts and stops at work? Just something to think about. So any comments on that would be great.
Yeah, we've got a few people saying that for them, it's always been personal rather than professional. So seeing it as developing yourself rather than your work self.
Yeah.
Mike saying personal is more powerful than professional. You may change careers, but you will always be yourself. And I think that's a really good point as well,
Yeah,
isn't
thank
it?
you. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think on that, development should, exactly what Mike said, development should transcend where you are. And we shouldn't compartmentalize. So development of yourself will obviously be that lead domino, which will help you be more effective at work. Because for me, I've put it down there, I've already said it, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Excellent.
And I think that
Dahlia said, she finds that CPD always makes her grow as a person. So they go hand in hand.
Yeah, Dahlia, completely agree. And I think a lot of that is also down to perception as well. For me, I've read a lot of books from finance to psychology to self-help, and a few of my friends, I do get a bit of ribbing for those, but I see it differently. For me, it's not the title of the book, exactly what you were saying, Dahlia, it's what you take from that.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, no worries. So what I wanted to do now is, we talked about lead dominoes earlier, is look at my daily routine and see how these little things done consistently, and hopefully this will help benefit and utilize you, will really add as you leverage. So for me, what I try and do every morning, I try and follow the miracle morning routine, is that I read. So I do half an hour reading, I do 3 minutes meditation, which I am working on. I do a cold shower for 2 minutes. I do put it on warm afterwards, so I'm not gonna be one of these people that just had a cold shower and that's it. 2 minute cold shower. I stretch, I do one stretch, I do 10 press ups, and then in the evening I journal, which I've been doing for the last year. For me, that stack has all come from just that one aspect of reading. So that one choice on that one Sunday about 8 years ago has led to all of that. That has been the lead domino. So I just want you again just to have a think. So on the right hand side, what value can habit stacking add to you, your students, the adults you work with, the staff you work with, and partners? So I just want a couple of minutes for you guys to think about that, and then see if you can think, actually, you know what, by putting this in place, we can do X and we can do Y. Because again, you can see here, these are not huge changes. Smallest changes have the biggest possible results.
While people are typing, I think it was key for me at the start of lockdown was finding those new habits and the new routine, because the old routine was gone because of the changes. So it was really difficult at first to be able to follow my daily routine. Having a child at home that was normally at school sort of stopped that ability to do that. So that's been key for me, has been to find a new way of still following a productive routine. Any other thoughts from anyone else? I'm not going to lie, I don't think I can commit to a cold shower for 2 minutes. I don't like cold at all. So I don't think
started with 30 seconds. There you go.
Oh, I don't even know if I could do 30
down.
seconds. I'm one of those people that takes half an hour to get into a swimming pool. I'm pathetic, really. Rachel says, a daily routine has been so important, and this is something we have worked on with our client group.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Rachel, that's seen some really good benefits to you with the people you work with, because I think routine, everyone loves routine, from niche students to adults, to the team you manage, to the team you work with, because if you have that routine, you have accountability, but you also have that support with it.
Yeah, definitely. Emma says that routine helps her, helps things to become easier and avoids procrastination, the dreaded procrastination.
Absolutely, and I think on that, I mean, I think we're all guilty to a point with procrastination. I certainly am, but with that, I think that routine also then, I suppose, bleeds down into the environment you create yourself, because people who have, or who are perceived to have really strong willpower, it's not that their willpower is any different to you and I. The difference is the environment they create for themselves. And if you focus on those two things with those environments, so a really good example is, for me at home now, I have my desk, I have a wireless mouse, I have a double screen. Wireless mouse costs £8, the screen costs £80, but that's put my productivity through the roof. If I don't have that, I procrastinate because I fiddle.
Yeah.
And it's things like that. It's how you develop your environment will equal your productivity, essentially.
Excellent. Yeah. Sylvia says that she's been trying to adapt to a new routine, getting up at the same time and not letting things slip, which I think has been a challenge for absolutely all of us, hasn't it, throughout lockdown? And Dahlia says it helps her to chip away at challenging tasks, having that daily routine. And again, it's making things achievable, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Sylvia, on that, a little thing, you may have listened to it, you may have read it, but there's a really good book / audio book called The 5-Second Rule. And especially things for getting up, literally count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It forces your body to get up. And I have lots of little cheats. You probably noticed that I was wearing glasses at the start. I don't actually need glasses, but the reason I have glasses on there is to try and look a bit more intelligent. But in all seriousness, the reason I wear glasses is because I know when I put those glasses on, I can start chipping away at things. So I'm looking for roles at the moment, and I'm not the best at getting down and sitting. I'm much more of a personable person. I don't really like writing reports. I don't like writing supporting statements. But I know when I put my glasses on, I can do my 20 minutes, and then I can go away.
Oh, wow.
And I tell you what, it's been little cheats here and there. And it is the little thing.
And we touched briefly in yesterday's webinar on nudge theory, and there's a bit of a nudge in there, isn't there, psychologically for you? It's a bit like wearing uniforms, isn't it? Like Taekwondo uniforms for doing that, because it puts you in the mindset. We've had a comment, Anila says routine is always making things easy, but she likes taking breaks from routines as she gets bored of the same thing all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's it's that combination of routine, but also having different routines to mix it up. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does perfectly. In my house, we all through lockdown kept weekends completely separately to the work week, even though we couldn't leave the house and we were staying in. At weekends, no work got that type of work got done. The routine changed. It became a weekend routine to enable us to feel a little bit of normality.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Dahlia says she'd love to write a journal regularly. Any tips for
Yes,
how
I
you can?
have.
Oh,
Right,
good.
2 seconds. I'll be back.
Oh, he's going to bring us a tip there. So fantastic. I'd like to write a journal regularly too. I wonder how many people do.
Remind me to show. Yeah,
At the end,
Dahlia
you're gonna
or
show
Helen,
us.
can you remind me because I have my visual cue. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Dahlia's looking forward to that. Mike says he uses an urgent important matrix for tasks. Everyone wants to do the enjoyable things, but they're not normally the urgent ones. You have to set priorities and do the hardest bits first.
Yeah. When I was managing my team, so I used to manage a team of 15 staff based from Exeter to Newcastle. On top of that, manage 14 key stakeholders and add to commercial partners. I had to be very selfish with my team. And going on from what you were saying, Mike, I utilise DMD, delegate, manage, do. So delegate first, manage second, and do last. So you can really prioritise and really sharpen up. Because that for me, especially, otherwise I would have probably gone a little bit crackers with the amount of the 3 main parts of my job.
We've got
So on
agreement
those,
that taking breaks makes people more productive, and I think you've sort of talked about that, and we maybe come into that as well with some of these techniques. So we'll look at that in a second.
and I will. So what I wanted to do now, these first few slides is setting the stage. The second part is utilising how I worked within my division and how I helped grow the division when I was heading out. So first one's the law of compounding. So as you can see, I don't know whether you can see it, but the first part is a domino. So a domino, I think, is an inch high. That domino knocks over a domino, double its size, so on and so forth. So when you get to 15, it knocks over something the size of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and then 25, it knocks over the Eiffel Tower. So for me, geometric progression or the law of compounding is showing a student, showing yourself, showing a partner, showing the group you work with that doing those little things consistently has massive, massive implications and massive positive results. And also, if everybody's busy, right, everybody's doing a lot and everyone wants to be more efficient. One of the ones that I use, and a really good book recommendation, is The One Thing by Gary Kelleher. Pareto's principle, 20% of the effort gives you 80% of the results. So when I was managing my team, my 20% would always be communication, because without communication, I don't get that 80%. And one that I use, especially with my limited male attention span and very simple male brain, is the Pomodoro technique. So that is just literally setting it, named after, obviously, tomato, setting a little tomato time of 25 minutes, stopping and going from there. It's, from what people have been saying, they're absolutely right. It's short, sharp bursts. We have been conditioned very much. You have to work hard. You have to work 9 to 5. Actually, that's probably technically incorrect, and I'm a little bit controversial in my ideas here, but I'd much prefer someone to be efficient within their working time. Anyone can be a busy fool. If someone wants to work for me and work 10 to 4 and get the work done and get it done to good quality, that's fine. I think we live very much in a flexible environment, not so much an archaic environment. So that for me is looking at exactly what I put at the bottom. Can you increase productivity for you, for your staff, for your students? Can you make things more efficient? Can you get more done in less time? If you can, you're going to have a happier workforce. Can you get outstanding relationships, and can you get outstanding culture? I'm all about the value I can add to you as members, and I'm also about the value I can add to everybody else. For me, everybody else's interests come first, and it should be the value that I can add. So when we're finished today, if you take one thing away, as I've said previously, that's a huge win. We have a couple of comments on there, Helen, at all. I did hear something bleak.
No, well, we had Jason was talking about organisation or skills being one of the challenges and the obstacles to overcome. Sort of getting in the way of being able to do all of the things that you want to do, and never really getting through everything on his list.
And I think, unfortunately, Jason, or fortunately, sometimes there are always going to be those things that are always going to be in a list. And if, for me, my advice would be, if they are on your list and they are continuing on the list, you're, in the nicest possible way, you're unwilling to do them because they are not your priority. So my advice would be get rid of them, because you're not on your 20%. For me, it's about looking at your list and saying what 3 of those on that list can have the biggest impact, because it's very easy to get a really long list. Within that long list, it's very easy to get lost in that long list. So for me, it's putting it down to 5 to 7 maximum and saying, right, let's hit that, because that again can have the lead domino effect on those kind of, I'd probably say, sub points. So what I wanted to go on now, and we are moving towards the end, is my experiences, because I've talked a lot about me, but I haven't actually put that up with any objective quantitative facts. So within the employability division, I've got 7 years experience, both as a tutor and head of a division. So my most previous role was creating a division which had gold standard for investors in people. It was grown from 1 to 6 to 13 clubs. The learners in that division grew from 25 to 300. Retention we put up 52 to 92. As you can see there, the stats all look really positive. Awarding bodies high risk to direct claim status, and it allowed us to double the revenue year from 1819 to 1920. I've mentioned what I did in terms of my role. I am not breaking boundaries. I am not doing anything that is vastly different. What I do is I put my staff and the key stakeholders at the heart of everything I do. My staff are the biggest return investments. If I'm not looking after my staff, if I'm not being honest with my staff, if I'm not supporting my staff in every single way I can, and just to add a little caveat to that, I was also on top of those doing 3,000 miles a month in terms of travelling. Staff should always be at the heart. If you are a manager, if you're a tutor, your team should always be at the heart of everything you do and how you can add value to them. Because if they see that you're engaged and you're motivated, you're inspired to help them, they will give everything back. I have worked at previous organisations, which I will go into in my next webinar, where this has not been the case. So for me, that's hopefully the stats that back up what I'm trying to say in terms of CPD and how I'd utilise that CPD. I'd work with those staff, educating them in terms of those productivity theories. So I want to kind of bring it back now to the education inspection framework. So with my employability vision, my intent was to create an outstanding staff and learner experience, leaving a legacy in the young people and communities we serve. Apologies, my English isn't great and that doesn't read well. Looking back retrospectively, how did I implement this? So first and foremost, and this has to start with you, because you cannot fulfill your potential. You cannot develop your students, your partners, your groups you work with, if you are not investing in yourself. I've had people previously say, well, Ian, I haven't got time to invest in yourself. For me, that's completely wrong in how you're looking at things. If you can't invest in yourself, you can't have the impact you want to have. So first of all, continue self-development. Then what I implemented was a staff leadership group. So without charge to the business, I implemented a staff leadership group. That was both to help me selfishly, but secondly to really reward, and it doesn't have to be monetary if you have a good culture on there. Of course, everyone wants to be paid what they're worth, but it doesn't have to be monetary if you've got that culture. Implementing a staff leadership group, it gives staff the promotion they deserve, and it also helps develop the staff, not beneath them, but the staff within their regions. It helps them as a leadership team gain more skills. It allows me to focus on what my priorities are. So maybe coming back to what you were saying, Jason, doing that really allowed me to really filter down my priorities. That allowed me to have monthly CPD, so we could realign our goals. We could really go back to what we're looking at, because it's easy in the employability sector, in any sector in FE, because we're so busy, we get caught up and we automatically think actually people know what we're doing. Actually, you need to constantly go back, refresh, check, regardless of whether that's students or staff, to ensure that our goals and values are realigned, because we could all be working really hard but all going in wrong directions. We had regionalised CPD, so that allowed more face-to-face time for the staff. It allowed the leadership group to lead it. It allowed more time to chat. And you know what? Sometimes I did have a cup of tea. I've drunk it now, but sometimes having that time just to chat with staff and having that cup of tea, just because you can't objectify it, doesn't mean it doesn't have a massive impact. Having 5 minutes with your staff member just to show them value, you know what, it can mean the world. Adding to that stakeholder education, talking to them about how finance works, because again, we can perceive if someone says, yeah, I get it, we can perceive it's easy to think, yeah, they get it. And it's easy to think they understand education. What I actually did, I put a new financial structure together so people could see what their projected versus actual earnings were. And the more we did that, the more you realise that people say they understand things, but they don't actually. And the deeper and the more simple, if you can go simple, if you can explain complex subjects really simply, it puts you in a really strong position. And therefore, you've got real clarity and real transparency within those. So that helped both in terms of stakeholder education, in terms of retention rates, in terms of success rates, in terms of revenue generated. Weekly team meetings done over Skype and Teams, just to check in, just to do it as a video. These little touch points, they're just, as I've got it down there, they're just easy to do as not to do. All right, and that's where you're going to get your massive wins. That's where you're going to get your, I suppose, your Dave Browers, your marginal gains. They're just as easy to do as not to do. Okay, I didn't have to kind of put this together. I could have done a PowerPoint, but I'd like to do a Prezi because it's more engaging. Again, just as easy to do as not to do. And that's something that I'd quite like you to probably write down. And also student resources. Working with a neat group, they're very tactile. So instead of it's easy to go on the electronic system we had. We moved it to brand new A4 lever arch folders, dividers in every single folder. Really simple, insignificant thing. But you know what? When a neat student goes to a job interview, they may not be able to articulate with the greatest degree of accuracy what they've done. Or they might be like me when I was 16, 17, 18, going home to mum asking how I did. It would normally be a monosyllabic grunt. So for that, it really allows them to quantifiably see their progress, and it might be personally and socially. And for me, within New ETH, it's not necessarily about your academic progress, it's about the long-term skills you've developed, you've moved forward with. And for me, it's about how can you show that student, how can they develop their personal and social confidence so that their academic confidence is a byproduct of that. So the impact, what was the impact? So it's all well and good me telling you this. Contract growth from 1 to 13, clubs, so sole education contract, student numbers, retention, success rates improved, so did progression rate. Student and client feedback was better, much better. Commercial partnerships, HSBC, Barclays, Army, Navy, MoneyWorks, so they all came on board, a national exposure for the programme, which adds to the staff experience and student experience. So for me, I try and go with Simon Sinek, and I always write this down, what value can I add? So is that a question? I've just noticed is that a question, Helen? Sorry, I just had something flick on the screen.
No, go ahead.
That's fine. I'm well aware we're quite short of time. So for me, it's something I want you to think about. Why do you do what you do? Why do you do what you do? And it's something maybe you want to go away and think about. Okay, I talked about in the previous slide, clarity of what you do and alignment of vision. That's for both. That can be from anything from yourself, your own personal vision, to your business division, to your department vision, to your vision for your class, for your group you work with. And what value can you add? What value can you add to your clients? And that might be something as simple as a thank you note, a written thank you note. When I left my previous role, I made sure that I wrote 24 thank you notes and sent them all across. All right? It took me about 2 hours. But for me, that's just the best way to do things, because people remember that. It's the little things they do, and also it's the right thing to do. So what things that are just as easy to do as not to do can you do? Can you spend an extra 2 minutes with that staff member? Can you sit down and realise that having a cup of tea, having a cup of coffee, having some decent biscuits will have a profound impact on that one staff member? Everybody responds differently. So what can you do now that you didn't do before? Who or what's your biggest return on investment? And what does CPD mean for you now? So 3 real good questions at the end of that for you guys to think about. And these will be shared, Helen, won't they?
Yes, we can share them. We will mail out to everyone afterwards, as we do after every webinar, and we'll make sure those questions are included.
Perfect. And what I wanted to do at the end, I wanted to go around taking pictures of, so reading changed my life. And it's really helped develop me in all aspects and all facets of my life. So I want to be able to do there. I hope people would maybe ask for some examples. You can see there's loads of different books that I've put on there. So please feel free to steal, beg, borrow buy those. I mean, Audible as well, I use as well, $7.99 a month, you get one free audio book. So you can see there, just from that little, I think there's about 95 books in there, I think. Just from that one choice about 8 years ago, that's the impact of those books. So I know we've discussed this and people say it's personal, but just what I'd like to leave you with is continual professional development or not.
That's a lot of books.
It's a lot of books, isn't it? There's some good variety in there.
Excellent. So I have a question. While we're giving everyone chance to think of what questions they'd like to ask you, which book, if you could only buy one book, which would be your book?
You know what? I originally, like 2 months ago, I would have said The One Thing, so left-hand side, middle.
Okay.
So the one thing is, what's the one thing you can do to make everything else easier or unnecessary? However, at the top middle, above The Secret, there's a book called The Go-Giver.
Okay.
I was given this by Nick, who I used to work with when I was at Loughborough. It's a brilliant book. So that would be it. I've changed to The Go-Giver.
Okay, interesting. So those are two for us to look out for and look up. So does anyone else have any questions that they'd like to put to Ian at this stage? So hard when people have to type. That's a lot of books. I'm busy now and I should be talking. We should be engaging and keeping everyone interested, and I'm just reading the book titles. Caroline says, thank you for sharing, Ian. What is your next CPD activity? Great question, Caroline.
It is a great question. I think off the top of my head, it is creating an outstanding staff culture. I think.
Excellent. And I'm tempted to go, and how are you going to do that? But we're 5 minutes towards our allotted time. So maybe that's one for the next session.
Yeah, so that will be my next webinar. That will be my next webinar. Sorry, that was a question, right?
Excellent. Rachel has said that she was going to ask about recommended books. That was going to be her question. So thank you. So you beat her to it with that one, and thanks for the question, Rachel. Any others before we finish? Have you got anything else on your slides or anything else you'd like to share, Ian?
I have got my journal in front of me though.
Oh, fantastic. So you'll be able to share that with us, won't you? You can go back onto your video, and if you switch your video on, we'll be able to see you.
Yeah, is everybody happy that I'll stop sharing?
That's okay. It's not stopped our end yet, but it shouldn't be long. So if
right.
What will help everyone, if you pop yourself onto speaker view, you should be able to see. You should be able to see better.
So this was literally 29th of July 2019. I went to watch some cricket. I had some really nice Ray-Bans. I'd previously lost a pair in Ibiza, bought some new ones, went to the cricket, and lost another pair of Ray-Bans. I was devastated. So I then, the day after, and then I spent the whole afternoon feeding rubbish. I then started journaling. My journaling, I'm going to take the specs off now, was really sporadic. So in terms of that, I used to work on an A4 sheet. So I used to do it when I used to go to bed. So I'd either think, you know what, it looks too big, I can't be bothered. Or I'd write a lot and then I was knackered, or I'd only write half a page. So it was really sporadic. What I have actually done, I think it was Dahlia that asked the question, is that right?
I think it was, yes.
So all I did, I set myself a very simple target. And this goes back to what I was saying about making things as simple and as easy and as achievable as possible. Like your 5 minutes, you want to get fitter, go for a run, get on your bike for 5 minutes, 3 times a week. All I did is got this. So it's a little book from HSBC. I think it's the A5 side. And I set myself a target. So first diary entry was the 11th of December, and I set myself a target of saying, write yourself 2 lines, and you're happy with that. Maximum 1 page. So you can see here, I don't know whether you'll be able to see it, but there are all the pages.
Wow, that's a lot of writing. We can.
But every single page, probably about from 5 when I've been knackered, have been full pages. So I've gone from sporadically writing on an A4 piece to writing pretty much every single day on that A5, just through one thing. And for me, I find personally journaling really helps me because it gets things out of here and onto the paper. And when you start writing it down, you can break down problems, you can solve them a lot easier.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. I might have to get you to speak to my daughter because I'm trying to get her to keep a journal over the summer and it's not going very well. So
2 lines, Max.
there
Yeah,
you go. Maybe
2 lines.
I'll do that. Thank you, Ian. This has been
No
really
problem.
fantastic. Thank you
No
so
worries.
much for sharing. We've had lots of comments saying thank you for sharing your thoughts. Dahlia has some of those books herself. So
Yeah, brilliant.
excellent. And again, just lots of, and Anilla as well is saying thank you. Dahlia's saying, so I should set a minimum limit.
Minimum and maximum as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that. So minimum 2 lines, maximum 1 page, because the main thing, Dahlia, is about, for me, it's about getting over that initial inertia. And if you set yourself a really small target, once you get over that and you do it, you know what, I've done it.
Yes. And it doesn't feel quite so such a mammoth task.
Yeah,
Excellent.
perfect.
Some more comments, lots of thank yous coming through. People, Rachel saying journals are a great way to read back as a measure of how far you've come.
Yeah, I agree.
Excellent. And thank you for sharing your thoughts and great ideas to go forward with from Louise. So thank you everybody for coming. We're on full of time now. So Ian mentioned earlier he is coming back. So he will be back with us on the 4th of August. So please do keep an eye out for that in the Learning Network e-bulletin that comes out, or you can access the links via our IEP website. We do have tomorrow the live lunch, the members social, which takes place at 12 o'clock, and that's open to all of you. Please do, you can come along. It's not scheduled to cover any type of agenda. We ask, it's for you guys to come along and talk about what you want to talk about, the things that are important to you at the moment, and have an opportunity to network with your peers from around the country. So it'd be great to see you there. We do have some sessions on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. We've got Your Horizon joining us to look at graduates and how we might look to support graduates over the coming months, and how we can go about coaching them, and that's what they do. So they're going to share their expertise with us. And on Wednesday, we have Skills Forward coming to show us their skills review software, which is more apprenticeship provider focused. So those are some of the things we've got coming up. Again, we've got loads more coming up over the week, so we'll keep getting that information out to you. And please do keep coming along to these sessions because it's great to have you all here. Thanks for all your comments on the chat, and I hope to see you all very soon. Thank you, everybody, and thank you very much, Ian.
No problem. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And just a very quick one, if you do want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free. Helen, we're connected on LinkedIn, aren't we?
We are, yes. Yeah.
Scott as well. And personally, anything I can do for you guys personally or for your organisations free of charge at the moment, please feel free to let me know. That's what
excellent. We'll put you all, we can put your LinkedIn, if you send me your LinkedIn URL, Ian, we can include that on the notification that goes out to everybody.
Brilliant. And thanks, Helen, for sorting all this out. And thank you, everybody, much for attending. It really means a lot from me. And I'm going to be
excellent.
quiet.
Thank you. All right. Thanks.